Thank you. Hey, everybody. So a good horror story has 3 rules. The first rule is the monster that you make has to be killed. The second rule is that a person's imagination is far worse than any monster you can come up with. And the third rule is if you have a ghost in the monster story, they can appear anywhere. So when I was a kid, my mom worked nights, and she was actually working in the hospital, which is creepy enough as it is at night. But she would leave at around, I'm going to say 10:30, and then at around 10:45, my dad would come upstairs and he'd fetch me, and we'd watch horror movies until 3 in the morning. And this started when I was about 8 and continued until I was about 14. And we were watching things like The Poltergeist or The Exorcist, or just things that were well outside of my scope of understanding that they were written things. And they horrified me, but I was so happy to spend time with my dad and so happy to be awake that I would, watch them anyway. And he'd send me back up to bed around 2 or 3 in the morning or whatever it was. And for reasons that I can't fathom, he would then try to scare me. And by way of example, I would go up to bed, he'd continue to watch movies, and then he would reenact parts of the film without revealing himself. So he would walk up the stairs and he would scratch the walls, or he'd go down to the oil heater, the oil tank that we had in the basement, and bang on it so that it radiated through the heating system. And I would get so scared that I would close the door. And then he'd come up the door and he'd whisper at it, or he'd scratch it. And he never explained that it was him. In the morning, it was like nothing happened. And I couldn't tell my mom, one, because how do you explain that? And then 2, because I didn't want to lose that opportunity. Years later, my father ends up living with us. His job went bust. His second wife left him. And he's in a bad way. He's in bad shape. And like all Kabiks, he can't sleep at night. Either because there's a long lineage of father Kabiks who show their kids horror films that they shouldn't watch, or because, biology. So it ends up that he wanders around my apartment at night while I'm sleeping next to my wife, and I hear the floorboards creak, and I hear him mumbling to himself. And all of the nightmares that I had when I was a kid come back, except now it's the Wolfman who's like a very hairy brother, or Frankenstein's monster who's just like a bumbling friend, who are trying to defend me against this thing that I can't define and I can't identify. That's actually my father. And this goes on for months, and I don't sleep. And I listen to him, and I'm so tempted to open the door and to ask him why he's doing this, and to ask him why he scared me when I was a kid, and to ask him, how do you think this is a way to live? But I don't, because you can't identify the monster. Once you do that, the horror film is over. The last time I see him, we end up actually moving here to Lancaster, and he's not invited to do so. And we're at the bus station, and he's got his entire life around him in bags. And he's wearing shoes that are falling apart. And he doesn't know where he's going to go. And the mix of drugs to keep him off of drugs and drugs that are just drugs are making him shamble like a zombie. And the rule that I haven't told you about for a good monster movie is that a good monster movie lingers with you. And he said that I was letting him down, and he said that I would never see him again, but that's wrong, because he played his part so well that I see him anytime I see somebody shambling on the streets drunk. I see him in my dreams as one of those monsters or one of those ghosts. Any knock in my house is not a ghost from some ancient Mennonite person who built the place. It's him. Every single time it's him. And it lingers with me now, and it lingers with me still.